right out of the gate with our In the Turn interview, which this week is sponsored by Emma's Pub and Pizza with locations in Bridgewater and Norton. Pizza Night is back Wednesdays and Sundays. Born December 23rd, 1969 in Vancouver, Washington, he got his start in the NASCAR Winter Heat Series in the mid-1990s, where afterwards he was recommended to Jack Roush by former announcer Benny Parsons. With Roush Racing, he was the 1998 Craftsman Truck Series Rookie of the Year, the 2000 Craftsman Truck Series Champion, and the 2001 Busch Series Rookie of the Year and 2002 Busch Series Champion. He would go on to collect 19 Cup Series wins, 20 Busch Series victories, and 17 Craftsman Truck Series wins. Greg Biffle, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm doing excellent. So let's jump right into things. How'd you catch the racing bug?
Well, I mean, growing up, anything that burnt gas or had a steering wheel, motorcycle, or it didn't matter what it was, I was on it and driving it or riding it. And really, that's just the bug's been with me since I was little. And when I got the opportunity, to go to a local Friday, Saturday night short track, I was just hooked. So that's really, really how it started for me.
Excellent. Talk to us about your time in the NASCAR Winter Heat Series and being discovered by Benny Parsons. How'd that all come about?
Well, we raced up in the Northwest, and they had the series, Tucson Winter Heat Series that ESPN2 helped put on. Basically, it was an invitational event, and there was late models and cars from all over the U.S., and it was a televised 3-race event, one in November, one in December, one in January. Of course, when NASCAR's off. And so that, I saw Ron Hornaday race that series and got hired by Dale Earnhardt. And, Roger and I was my guy that helped me with all my late model cars. And we really, really wanted to go there and give it a try. And we made the trip down in 95 and did really well in 95. We qualified 4th 2 times in a row and won both those races, and then qualified 11th and finished 4th and clinched the title. And, that I became friends with Benny Parsons, bigger than life guy, comes down, walks through the garage, knew everybody by name, was just a real racer at heart, and cared about the sport and did a fantastic job broadcasting it. So he just came strolling down through. And, of course, the second year, we ran well again, and I became pretty good friends with him, and he passed my name around the Cup garage, and lo and behold, I got a phone call from Jack Roush.
Very cool. And you are right. Benny Parsons was larger than life and had quite a career, not only racing, but career with television at ESPN, TNT, and NBC as well. So 1996 led you to the Winston West Series. You finished 30th at Tucson and 4th at Altamont. Your debut in one of NASCAR's national divisions came later that year when you ran the final 2 Busch Series races of the season, driving a Chevrolet for Dick Bone. Tell us what you remember from your NASCAR debut in the Busch Series back in '96.
That was really odd how that came about, but I played. I was following my success of traveling and winning some of these races, and so Roger and I we went to Rockford, Illinois, and ran a race at Rockford, Illinois. And then we went and came to run a Big Ten race at Concord Motor Speedway all the way from Portland, Oregon. And I knew the Bound family from out in Oregon. They had a big operation out there, and they'd moved east. And anyway, when we were at the racetrack, we asked them for help to help pit our car. Because we didn't normally do pit stop races. We normally did the halfway break. So we had to do a pit stop, and we needed some help and needed some guys. And so they helped us come and pitted for us in that Big Ten race, and we finished second there. And then he asked if we wanted to, if we were interested in running a couple of Busch Series races. And so we tested Rockingham and did really well. And, my 2 races didn't turn out so good. We qualified 15th at Rockingham, which was good, because there was, they were sending cars home in the Busch Series at that point. There was too many to qualify. So we qualified 15th, but we got spun out on the first lap by Jeremy Mayfield. So that race ended very quickly. And then in Homestead, we were second quick in practice to Mark Martin. And when we put on the tires to scuff them in for qualifying, we ended up getting loose down in 3 and 4. That was the old configuration, and crashed and had to go to a backup car. And so our day was not as good as it could have been. And actually the engine expired in the race on the backup car. So, couple races early on, didn't have the result we wanted, but we showed a lot of speed. So
excellent. And Jack Roush came calling and promoted you to a full-time driver in the Craftsman Truck Series in 1998. Despite not winning a race that season, your 4 pole position spots were the most by a Truck Series rookie to date, and they helped you earn an 8th-place finish in the final standings. Talk to us about your debut season in the trucks.
Yeah, it was it was an experience. Coming to the Truck Series was, really didn't know what to expect. The guys, the truck shop was in Michigan, way different than the way it is today, and we struggled a bit at the beginning of the Truck Series with the chassis and with the setup, and we got going pretty good toward the end of that year, and we actually kind of ended up giving away a couple of races because we failed to take tires and did a couple of dumb things. But anyway, we came back in 1999 the following year and won 9 wins, more than anyone in the series. So we figured it out in 98 and came back in 99 and applied ourselves.
Yeah, you mentioned 99 and the record 9 wins, a single-season Truck Series record, as you mentioned, that still stands. Finishing second in the final standings, just 8 points shy of Jack Sprague. First off, tell us about that first win of your Truck Series career in Memphis.
Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. That was pretty exciting for us to be able to, get that first win under our belt. I love Memphis racetrack. I adapted well, and it was neat. It was a bunch of hard work, and it was a hard-working team that finally broke through, and that's really the story. And it was a great win for us. We had a really fast car and a fast truck that day, and everything went our way finally.
Now, obviously, I'm sure the first one's special, but any other wins that season really stand out to you and stick with you today? It's so hard because every win's special. Anytime you can win in any series, doesn't matter what it is, it's a culmination of how hard you work in your life and how much effort you put in. And, sometimes you win some. In racing, like anything, you win some you probably shouldn't have, and you lose a lot more of them that you should have won. So we had a great season that year, and it was just fun. Winning, week after week, winning 9 races in a single season when there's only, I don't remember how many races there were, but I think like 28. That's a pretty big percentage, and it was just a fun year. Absolutely sounds like it. And trust me, like they say, when you're winning, it makes the season fly by. The following season, you won the Truck Series Championship. Tell us a little bit, maybe about that season or something that really, a memory that sticks out to you about the championship year.
Yeah, it was, coming back, it was competition was certainly getting tougher. And we think we figured out in 98 and 99 what we needed to do. And, we didn't quite take as many chances as we probably should, and, ended up winning the title in a handful of wins again. So it was a great experience, and I'll remember I clinched the title in Texas with a pretty hard crash with a flat tire and straight into the fence. So that was certainly a difficult thing. That's one thing that sticks out in my mind. Obviously, I remember, unfortunately, about that season. But a lot of great races and a lot of competitive events, and it was just a fun time with our team.
So you joined the Busch Series full time in 2001, and won the Rookie of the Year with 5 wins and a 4th-place finish in the final standings. Following season, you won another 4 races and earned 20 top 5 finishes out of the 34 races en route to your first Busch Series title and the second NASCAR National Championship of your career. Talk about your time in the Busch Series and really, a memory that might stick out from the Busch Series time.
Yeah, I mean, all along all along through my career, there's a common thing every time I moved up is, I got fairly, dominant in the Truck Series, and I think we won 5 or 6 that final year. And you go to the Xfinity Series, and it's amazing how much tougher the competition was. And it's something I just completely underestimated is, how difficult, how fast all these guys are. And I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to, be able to ever win one of these races when I first started out and finally got going, and we finally got to where we started winning some races and competing. But that's one thing I remember when I, came into the Truck Series and came into the Xfinity or Busch Series is, man, these guys are tough. Way tougher than I expected. And I think part of it is, in the Truck Series, there's about 12 guys you had to beat. 12, 15 guys fighting for that win, fighting for that top 5 every week that were really, really good guys. And then you get in the Xfinity or Busch Series, then there was like 20 guys, 24 guys that were, really solid teams, really fast cars, and hard to beat. And then I'm going to jump ahead to the Cup Series. There's 35 guys that, a bad day in the Truck Series, you finish 15th, 16th was an off day. A bad day in the Xfinity car, you finish 23rd. A bad day in the Cup Series, you finish 37th. Just if your setup's off or you had some bad pit stops or something else, it's like there's no room for error. And the quality and the depth of the teams and the ability is just so steep of a curve from the Truck to Xfinity to Cup. That's one thing I remember about each, step of the way.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the Cup, and you would make your Cup Series debut for Jack Roush at California in 2002, your second attempt to make your Cup Series debut. You'd go on to lead a pretty successful Cup career, and your first of 19 Cup wins came at Daytona in the 2003 Pepsi 400. What'd that first Cup Series win mean to you?
I'll tell you, that was a great win for us. The car, I'll never forget, the car was so free, so loose. I was hanging on by a thread and, just trying to hold off these guys that were a bit faster than us and had their cars down on the racetrack a little bit better than we were. And, a lot of people say that was a fuel mileage win, but it was really a split strategy. So there was half the field was on a strategy and half the field was on another strategy. It wasn't like one or two cars had pitted and then tried to stay out. So it was, I was racing with Bobby Labonte and Michael Waltrip and a few others for the win. And, they had fast cars, and it was a difficult day, but what a successful day that was.
So you had some success, a few tracks where you had multiple Cup wins. Tracks like Homestead, you had 3 years in a row the season finale, and Michigan, you won 4 races. What sticks out about those tracks that really led to your success there?
It's weird that some of these racetracks, like you figure out, things about a track. They're sort of like, personalities. Everybody looks a little bit different, and you figure out things that just suit your driving style. You figure out little tricks about the racetrack. I won, I think 3 years in a row at Homestead. I won a few years in a row at Darlington, which is a really tough place. I won, 4 races in Michigan and Texas. I think, each one, you just figure out what the car wants and what the car needs. And then, Michigan, I figured out, that the racetrack, really what it was about Michigan was it was kind of that wore out the pavement. And we figured out if we used a lot of bleed in the shock, we got a lot of grip, mechanical grip, and the car would turn around, go around the corner pretty fast. The one thing that was bad about that is when you got in traffic, it's super hard to drive. So there's a handful of Michigan races that I probably could have won or almost won, but we got mired back even fifth or sixth in the line, and then I wasn't able to get close the deal. But those races where you could get out front and it spread out just a little bit, we were really, really competitive fast. So, and we were able to apply that to some other places. But I was successful at Michigan in the trucks. I won there both times we raced in the truck series there too. So it was just a racetrack I liked, and it suited my driving style.
There you go. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention our home track up here in New England. You won at New Hampshire in the fall of 2008. If I'm not mistaken, it was an overcast, kind of cool day there. Talk to us about that win and, anything you might remember from your trip up here to New Hampshire.
Yeah, I really liked that racetrack. It was fun racing there. Really challenging, flat, super flat type of racetrack. I love those tracks where you kind of use a little bit of the apron to help the car rotate, diamond the corner, real flat corner entry. It was one of my kind of favorite places to go. Even though we struggled there a lot as a team, it was a fun racetrack. And I had a handful of good runs there, including that win, obviously. So, I really like that track. I like the way it's laid out. I actually like the area as well. It reminds me a lot of where I grew up out in Washington. So I had fun up in the area and kind of exploring and doing stuff. So I looked forward to that time of the year. It was a little bit cooler than everywhere we were racing these places, and it was hot already, so it was nice to go up there, and it was a little cooler. But it's definitely a challenging place. You're off a little bit there. It's hard to get around that track.
Absolutely. So, more recently, you've run for the NY Racing team in the Cup Series and KBM winning a Truck Series race in Texas a couple of years ago, as well as running SRX the last 2 years. What might be on the schedule, if anything at all, coming up here for you to see you back at the racetrack? Yeah,
this year I'm a bit more in the semi-retirement stage, so I don't have a lot going. We were talking about some Cup races, and that hasn't transpired yet. I'm not saying it won't. And the SRX series, they switch it around and have some different new guys in there. So a few current Cup guys. So I haven't got on that schedule yet, but I've talked to them several times about doing at least one or two. So that's really kind of not confirmed. I'm doing a bit of off-road racing and that kind of thing. And a little bit later in the year, talking about doing some a little bit of sports car racing. So we'll see what kind of transpires. But just, whatever comes my way and makes sense, I might jump back behind the wheel.
Excellent. So a team you did run for, who we've obviously mentioned quite a bit, was Roush Racing, now Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. Last year, Brad Keselowski came into that organization, and this year it seems like things are really starting to pay dividends. What are some of your thoughts on RFK right now and what's going on there with Jack and Brad and the Fenway group?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough to get. It's definitely tough when you're behind a little bit. It's hard playing catch up. And what happens is, as you are trying to make those leaps and bounds to kind of catch up to some of the competition, they're also discovering new things and new ways and new tricks. So not only do you have to get to their level, you got to also compete on the new technology or whatever they're figuring out with these cars at the same time you're trying to, kind of close that gap anyway. So that's difficult to do, but I agree with you. They have definitely closed the gap. They're running much, much better. Leading some races, running up front. They haven't had the results they want yet, but they look like they've turned the corner and are definitely in a better spot now.
And how about, as somebody who has driven one of the new next-gen cars now, what are some of your, quick thoughts on the next-gen car?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the style of car I would have done, but I think they've done a good job at, making the. I think they're headed down the right road when you try and make a common part that everyone can use equally. I think that's a right way of going about it. I did see the car when RCR was first putting them together. It looked a little overbuilt to me when you come from the race car world. And actually, it was funny. I was talking about that today. I went through Riley Motorsports and saw a bunch of GT3, GT4, LMP3 cars at their shop like 2 days before I went to Childress' shop. This was, a year and a half ago before Daytona 500, and saw the new Cup car. And comparing the two technologies was drastically different. It lots of bars, lots of steel, lots of stuff at the Cup level, and lots of carbon, lots of billet aluminum, lots of lightweight parts at the GT3 and 4 and sports car world. So I would have thought that they would have meshed a little closer to that with the new Cup car. But, and then I know they had some issues where they ended up being too stiff, and some drivers were complaining about it, and I think they've made some modifications to it and softened it up a bit as far as impact goes. But it's I think they're on the right track as far as kind of unifying the parts and pieces and making it a little easier for these teams long term. I know short term nobody likes change, and it's a difficult thing to ramp up so quickly, but I think long term it's going to help them.
Excellent. So we've been talking with Greg Biffle, the former Cup Series driver who was the 2000 Craftsman Truck Series champion and 2002 Busch Series champion. And Greg, the final question I have for you that I ask all our guests who've been on, when it's all said and done, your time is up, how do you want to be remembered to the racing fans?
Well, I mean, basically any driver, greatest of all time, right? But any race car driver just wants, just wants to be respected, and a guy that treated, drivers with respect and brought something to the series and sort of, contributed to building the thing to where it is today. And there's certainly a lot of guys before me that paved the way, and a lot of guys after me are paving the way. And I just had a great time racing in the Cup Series, and we had really enjoyed it. The fans are great in that series, loyal fans, and it's just I enjoy it still. I watch all the races. Going to get back in there and drive some more. Enjoy going back to the racetrack. So